So far, I've talked a lot about the Constitution, the law, due process. Uh, Try to teach people what due process is, and it's just not happening. Those are my other videos, but I like to talk about I talk about the Constitution a lot, but I sometimes neglect the Declaration of Independence. You know, Declaration of Independence is what gave us the U.S. Constitution. The Constitution are the fruits of this document. The Declaration of Independence doesn't denounce monarchy in general, but it strongly criticizes King George III of Great Britain for his actions against the American colonies. It accuses him of tyranny and outlines numerous grievances, claiming he violated the rights and liberties of the colonists. The document asserts that the right of the people to alter or abolish a government that becomes destructive of these rights. Uh, Here are more detailed breakdowns. Specific grievances. The Declaration lists 27 specific complaints against the king, including refusing to pass laws, dissolving colonial legislatures, and imposing taxes without colonial consent. Remember, people, I told you about informed consent. You know, did you actually give informed consent about the taxes you're paying? Remember, the IRS is in the public trust. If you read the public trust doctrine, you would understand that. And tax dollars are supposed to go in the public trust and used or utilized in the public interest. And it says in the preamble of the Rule of Professional Conduct in every state and in the ABA that it's the legal obligations of every lawyer and judge to do what's in the public interest and maintain the public trust. And remember, reasonable knowledge requires reasonable knowledge requires reasonable information. No, informed consent requires reasonable knowledge to make an informed decision to give informed consent. Okay, so there's a sorry, I'm mixing a lot of laws and throwing some laws in there while I'm doing this. Just my mind goes in a million different directions. Okay, the Declaration lists 27 specific complaints against the king, including refusal to pass laws dissolving colonial legislatures and imposing taxes without colonial consent. While Parliament is also mentioned in the Declaration, primarily target King George III, presenting him as a tyrant and a lawbreaker. Rights to revolution. The Declaration argues that when a government becomes destructive of the people's rights, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and establish a new government. Natural rights. The Declaration affirms that all individuals are endowed with certain inalienable rights, including life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which the king was seen as violating. Not a universal denunciation of kings. The Declaration does not explicitly condemn monarchy as a form of government, according to the University of South Carolina. Of course, South Carolina. What does the Declaration say about the king? The history of the present king of Great Britain is a history of repealed injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object of establishment and of absolute tyranny over these states. What does the Declaration say about British king's behavior? What does the Declaration about treason? Signing the Declaration became an important issue of votes cast in Congress to approve the measure. The Declaration of Independence was an act of The Declaration of Independence was an act of treason against the British Crown. This document is acknowledged as the end of the words, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." Let me reiterate that. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. People, I'm just reading this. I'm not A lot of people like to argue with me about the law. They want to discuss this. No, I didn't write this. If I was a reporter, I would be reporting it, but I'm not a reporter. I'm just giving you, sorry about that, it's my phone. I'm just giving you reasonable knowledge to make an informed decision so that you can give informed consent, which is the legal responsibility of the legal community. Seems ridiculous that I'm doing it for you instead of them, but they'll never get around to it. What crime did the signers of declarations of independence commit treason? One of the 56 members, Dr. Benjamin Rush, said stepping forward to sign the declaration was like signing your own death warrant. They all had committed treason against the crown of England, a crime punishable by death. Of course, every monarchy, dictator, emperor, if you don't go along with anything they think or say, that is treason. You're an enemy of the state. Bow to the king. Who are they blaming in the Declaration of Independence? Their complaints, colonists made it clear that they are angry with the British king and government for taking away their rights as English citizens. They point out that the king has ignored or changed their colonial government as well as the rights to a trial by jury. See, British rights here in the colonies at the time didn't apply to the colonials. So no laws. They could just get arrested for anything. Thus, the rule of law. This is what they came up to. And see, these ideals came from, time some years before that. The rule of law, the history of the rule of law, if you look up the Magna Carta, it's there. Because in Europe and England as well, people have these issues as well. Taxation without representation, that caused the Barons' War, which is in the history of the Magna Carta. But that's another story. Who was king when the U.S. declared independence? What happened to the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence? What does the Constitution say about a tyrannical government? The U.S. Constitution doesn't explicitly define tyranny, but incorporates several mechanisms to prevent it, including separation of powers, which right now people are saying we're having a constitutional crisis, and the only thing that's in this constitutional crisis is there is no separation of powers. Rule of law just, in my opinion, it never existed. But for what little part that did exist is gone. U.S. Constitution doesn't explicitly define tyranny, but it incorporates several mechanisms to prevent it, including separation of powers, checks and balances, and the right of the people to alter or abolish the government. Okay? Let me reiterate that. And the right of the people to alter or abolish their government. The Constitution establishes a system where power is divided among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, preventing any single branch from becoming too powerful. Each branch also has the ability to limit the actions of other branches, further guarding against tyranny. Additionally, the Declaration of Independence and the Second Amendment emphasize the right to resist oppression. Here's a more detailed look at key aspects. Separation of powers. The Constitution divides the federal government into three branches: legislative, Congress, executive, president, and judicial, Supreme Court, each with distinctive functions. These prevent any one branch from becoming too dominant. Checks and balances. Each branch can limit the actions of their of other branches. For example, the president can veto laws passed by Congress, but Congress can't override the veto. The right to resist tyranny. The Declaration of Independence states that when a government becomes destructive of the rights it is instituted to protect. It is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation of such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to they shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So it's basically telling you the Constitution was written to serve the needs of the many, not the greed of the few. The amendment, Second Amendment, this amendment, which guarantees the right to keep and bear arms, as interpreted by some to protect the right of the people to resist a potentially oppressive government. Impeachment. The Constitution provides for the impeachment and removal of the president, vice president, and other federal officers of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. In essence, the Constitution, along with the Declaration of Independence, is designed to prevent tyranny by distributing power, establishing checks and balances, and acknowledging the rights of the people to resist oppression. What did Thomas Jefferson say about black people? Jefferson's views on slavery and blacks are complex. At one time, he thought blacks were naturally inferior to other races, but later considered servitude may have an impact on their abilities. As a young Virginia legislator, he unsuccessfully advocated allowing private citizens to free their slaves. This cracks me up. What did the king say about the Declaration of Independence? In his address, the king spoke about the signing of the U.S. Declaration of Independence and the revolutionary leaders who signed it, saying, for daring and desperate in the spirit of those leaders who object has always been domination of power, they have now openly renounced all allegiance to the crown. Yeah, king and country, right? What slavery mentioned in the Declaration of Independence? No, the final version of the Declaration was not explicitly mentioned slavery. While Thomas Jefferson originally draft included a condemnation of slavery, it was removed by the Continental Congress before the document was finalized. The deletion was primarily due to the concerns about unity among the colonies, particularly perspectives of slaveholding states, which were in the South. When they originally started, they did offer emancipation, and that's how they got, and they paid the colonists for their slaves so their slaves could fight in the war against the British. And some say that the only reason the colonists put that in there, the rule of law, where it says where it's in a nation where it says every man is endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That rule of law thing. So they gave it to as many people as they could. Slaves, free black men joined the colonial army as well because they had family that may have been slaves. Native Americans, they fought in the war against. They were offered emancipation. There was a lot of immigrants. Germantown, one town, Poles. There was Russians, but a lot of different immigrants. And at that time, under British rule, it was English only, Christian only, and they were trying to convert everybody to their favorite version of Christianity, which was Protestant, which were the English were known to do. That's what they did Ireland and so on and so forth. Forced conversion. The religious wars between the Protestants and the Catholics, went on for hundreds of years, 500-600 years. And that was part of why the separation of powers was created, because one legislator mentioned that he didn't want what affected the lands of Europe for so many years, that stained the ground with blood. So, thus separation of powers. They wanted a wall. They wanted a wall between the church and state. Seriously, people. Do we have the right to overthrow that to secure these rights, governments are instituting among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the government, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such. Right now, what we got going on is corporacy. I did a video on that. You should look that up. That's where we are. A corporacy. We are a corporacy. Does gun control violate the Second Amendment? No, it doesn't. No. Gun control laws are generally not to violate the Second Amendment. Courts consistently upheld the Second Amendment does not guarantee an absolute right to own any firearm, but rather protects the rights to keep and bear arms for a lawful purpose. This includes the right to possess a handgun and held for self-defense, as established in the District of Columbia versus Heller. Okay, there's more detailed information. Okay, people, but there's a lot of questions you can ask yourself. There's a lot of questions I wouldn't even ask myself, but they come up with as many questions and leads you in a lot of different directions. So they may have answers to questions you haven't even asked yet. Okay, that's what I like about the present AI. It doesn't know the answer, but it has a lot of answers, and it may take you in so many different directions, different laws. This is the present day Dewey Decimal System. Take advantage of my disadvantage. I didn't have this advantage. When I found all this information, I like to read. But now I'm just pointing it out. It's on the internet, and I love it. I love that I can show you this. Okay, there's a lot of. What state has the strictest gun law? Declaration of Independence. You can get a transcription of that. Okay. Well, right now, as far as I can show you legally, the rule of law doesn't exist. If the rule of law does exist, qualified immunity wouldn't. Here in the United States, they started using qualified immunity in Pearson versus Ray back in, in the 50s. And it was to prevent some white preachers from sitting with some black preachers in a colored-only zone at a bus depot. And they were organizing going south, to help people vote and register them to vote and encourage them to vote. And some states didn't like that. Okay, so, and since then, they gave the cops qualified immunity, said, well, hey, they didn't know there was no such law. And it extended from cops to just about every public servant there is out there. Qualified immunity. If there wasn't qualified immunity and rule of law did exist, imagine how many public servants wouldn't be violating the oath. Violating the oath requires fines, removal from public service, and incarceration. And thus far, nobody telling you anything of what I've told you so far in all my videos clearly shows a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. Simply because you don't know. You don't know. Okay, people, just nothing but peace and love to you, Instead of listening to the educated, seasoned professionals about what the law means to them, why don't you just look it up and read it yourself and use the letter of the law? The letter of the law is a legal mandate in interpreting the law, which means everything seen, everything read has to be done word for word to the letter. In the spirit of the law, so that justice may be served. Nothing but peace and love to all of you. All my people, we the people, nothing but love and showing you what I know. It's always been my pleasure. And there's a lot of you I have helped out. So it was a great experience. It's a great experience. Hearing you talk about what you know now, it's always been a pleasure. And that's my payment, people. At Legal Reform, the only thing you spend there is time. No contributions asked for or accepted. This is strictly non-profit. Just, if you feel the need to donate some money, Shriners, St. Jude. Find a worthy organization, all right? The only thing I need from you is your time. Have a good day.